Hey, everybody. Happy Thursday. I keep thinking it's Friday. Ever since I woke up, I thought it was Friday. Welcome. I'm Julie Barrett, founder of Conservative Ladies of America and Conservative Ladies of Washington. Welcome. Please do say hello in the chat. Let me know where you are watching from. I'm going to give this just a couple minutes for people to see that I have gone live so that they can jump on. How's everybody feeling? All of our Washington friends, today's live is going to be very Washington specific. So would love to hear from those of you in Washington. How are you feeling about everything? It's been it's been a big year in the 2025 legislative session. There has been a lot going on as we anticipated. It was really a big, it was a pretty destructive, I think destructive is the best word that I could use for this legislative session. So curious how y'all are feeling. Are you digging your heels in? Are you gonna get out while you still can? Would love to hear. So if you are willing, share in the comments where you're watching from, and would love to hear your thoughts kind of on this week. If you have questions throughout the live stream, go ahead and put those in the chat. Joy Jerswald is our programs director, and she is in the chat. She'll be chatting with you guys and answering some questions. If you have any specific questions that you want Joy to answer just in the chat, go ahead and do that with her. But let's go ahead and dive right into it. So this week, I was trying to look up to see how many bills Bob did not sign this week that were passed through the legislature that did not get signed or vetoed by Ferguson. And I had to download it into an Excel spreadsheet. And unfortunately, I didn't have time to finish sorting everything out before I went live today. So I don't have an exact answer for you, but it does look like there are a few dozen bills that Bob did not sign. Now, Washington state law says that if a bill has passed through the legislature and the governor does not act on it, it still becomes law. So I'm not sure, like, why would he not sign a certain bill knowing that it would still become law? I mean, is that some sort of a political strategy? I'm not exactly sure. And I didn't really look at which bills he did not sign. I kind of thought maybe he wouldn't sign some of these more controversial bills. Leslie's saying I can hear. So I'm hoping that means you can hear me, that not that you can't hear me. Hey there, Mike and Jason. And Jason says next year will be worse. And I fully agree. Next year will be worse. So as you probably are well aware, he signed House Bill 1163, which is the permit to purchase a firearm. That will go into effect on May 1st of 2027. So you have just under 2 years before that takes effect. But keep in mind that in 2023, the legislature passed an assault weapons ban. They also passed some kind of, like, you have to do this special class. It was the permit to purchase, but they amended the bill down so much that it was like you have to take an online training class. And I think Sporting Systems offers the class to meet that requirement on their website. It was like 1143 or 1144 in 2023. I forget which one. So the assault weapons ban was House Bill 1240 in 2023. The year before that, in 2022, they passed Senate Bill 5078, which is the high capacity magazine ban. So in Washington state, they can't sell magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. So really, even without this permit to purchase bill, the Second Amendment rights of people living in the separate country of Washington are pretty much neutered. And one of the bills that I predict will be passed next session, I want to say it's like 1501. I know I transposed the numbers. It's the bill for insurance on each of your firearms. It was like $20,000 certificate of deposit that you would have to have on each of your firearms. So that is also ridiculous. And all of this is just a way for them, well, to take away your constitutional rights, but also to create a firearm registry. So you guys can't are you guys saying that you can't hear me, Joy? Kind of make sure you guys can, will you guys let me know in the comments if you can hear me? It's just Joy. Okay, that's good. Cool. So that's kind of my prediction as far as what they're going to do with the Second Amendment. And, a lot of people have been talking about Ferguson being a moderate, and I'm sorry that, and people who know darn well, like you had the Republicans in the legislature talking about how he had become moderate. His speech in his inauguration was moderate. He was reaching across the aisle. If you weren't watching Bob for the last 12 years as the Attorney General, or the 10 years before that while he was in King County City Council, maybe I could understand that. But these people that are in the legislature know exactly who Bob Ferguson is, and the gun stuff has been on his agenda for decades. He is extremely radical. He is as radical as they come. The moderate card that he has been playing in his inauguration speech, and maybe in some of his media stuff, that is all just to deceive people. And it worked like a charm. And like every time I think of him, I have this like image of like a serpent in my mind. That's what I think of when I think of Bob, just sleazy, slimy serpent. And there is nothing, nothing different about him now that he is governor. He just has more power. And we watched him sign into law several bills that were had an emergency clause on them, making them go into effect immediately, such as the bill that allows him to have power over any other military that might come into the state to help with, let's say, wildfires or anarchy or any of these things. So he has control over that. He also passed, and that was 1321, House Bill 1321. He also signed House Bill 1531, which is the medical, giving state power over medical mandates. These are very radical, dangerous bills that our buddy Bob was all in support of. He signed those gladly, and I would even say gleefully. So let's not look at Bob anymore. But yeah, so this whole idea that he was going to be moderate is silly. Byron, isn't the serpent in the Bible the devil himself? Yes, and that's why I think Bob reminds me of the serpent in the Bible. And there's two thoughts that come to my mind when I think about these people who were selling Bob as a moderate. So either they bought his shtick and thought that after 20 years in Washington state government and politics, that somehow he was going to be different or do different. So they either bought it, or they intentionally told people that he was moderate. I don't know, to keep people in the state, to keep people from fleeing. I'm really not sure, but either way, neither one of those options is a good thing, because if people aren't smart enough to understand that Bob is who he always has been, that's kind of scary that those are the people that we have elected into office. So I'm really frustrated by that. And so one of the things I want to say is that I don't like, when I got involved in politics and legislation in 2020, but really got involved in 2021 after what happened with my daughter and at Seattle Children's Hospital and the homeless shelter in Seattle. And I got connected with now former State Representative Brad Clippert, and started going down the rabbit hole on all of this legislation. And I was just alarmed. And I would say, and I probably still am, I would say I'm kind of obsessed with going down these rabbit holes, not just in Washington state legislation, but it's like this weird legislation obsession that I have now, because I want to know, what are these laws? Who voted for them? What does it mean for me as an individual? What does it mean for my family? And then when I find out these things, I want to tell other people. Now, you don't have to agree with my position or my opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of a party or a boss, or I'm just telling the truth as I see it. And you may not agree with my opinion, or you may not agree with my assessments of things, and that's okay. That is, I completely am, agree to disagree on things, or I love a good debate. I think it's healthy. I think it's fun to have debates, but that is the reason that I continue to speak up for Washington, is because there is so much deception on both sides. There is so much that people don't know about. I really want to spare other families from going through what our family has had to go through. And it's so extensive, and there's so much that I just haven't shared publicly for a number of reasons, because it was very traumatic for me personally, and I just haven't really felt ready to talk about it. I may never be ready to publicly talk about it, but we went through 3 years from 2021 until we got out in the June of 2023. We went through hell in Washington state, and it was just like one thing after another, one roadblock, one issue with the government. And it was a nightmare, and it's not going to get better. And anyone who tells you that it is, I'll have what they're having, because, whatever they're smoking to make you believe that Washington is going to get better, it's not. Now, that's not to say that people shouldn't, obviously, you have to have the resistance, right? There always has to have a resistance, but this is America, and you don't need to be the resistance in a place where it's going to cost you your job, your family. And for me, speaking up in Washington, I knew that was going to become dangerous for me and for my family. It already was becoming dangerous for my family, but if you don't think that there is going to be political lawfare, there already is political lawfare in Washington state. And so if you're someone that's outspoken and you're showing up to testify in hearings in the legislature, and you are very outspoken against their radical left policies, and you're using your mouthpiece to get other people to oppose their policies, you are putting a target on your back. And I knew that at some point it was going to be, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point people who are speaking like I am in Washington state could face jail time. I mean, that's not out of the realm of possibility. I think we're a few years out from that, but I think that's they're headed that way. All this hate crime stuff, the hate crime hotline, the domestic extremism task force that they've gotten, that is to identify people like me and maybe people like you. And so we're Americans. We don't have to live like that. And so I would say, if you have the ability to get yourself and your family out of Washington state, you should do that, because there is freedom beyond the walls of Washington state. And you kind of don't realize how bad it is until you're on the other side and you're actually living in a free state. I can't tell you how, my husband and I, when we came to Florida, when we first got here and we were officially out of Washington, the moving truck had taken our stuff and we were on the airplane and we were officially out of Washington. It was this weight is lifted. And whenever we come back, it's like that. You have that weight again. And you just don't realize it until you actually break out. So I encourage you to consider it, pray about it. Not everybody can leave. And I think there's a lot of fear for people who feel like they can't leave or they won't leave. And I understand that. I think that fear is very warranted. I would just like to say, please don't take your fear out on the people who are leaving and, getting upset with people for leaving. People get upset with me all the time and don't tell people to leave. But truly, if you want to live like a free American, Washington is not a place where you can do that. And it is going to get worse. And I think, with all these taxes and things that were signed into law this week, I think you're going to have a difficult time in the not too distant future selling your home. I think we're going to see home values really drop. I think Washington is going to become very bad for businesses. So those are all things, that you want to think about. And currently, if you get out soon, you can probably get a pretty decent price for your house and, get something, our house here in Florida would have cost double in Washington state. And that's pretty typical in a lot of areas of the country. You can probably get twice as much house outside of Washington for the price in Washington. So just would encourage you guys to think about that because there are a lot of bad bills that did not pass this year. One of the top ones on my mind is Senate Bill 5068, which is the bill that was supported by every Republican in the Senate. And would allow non-citizens to be police officers. How about that? That would be very bad. And I'm hopeful that if that goes through again next year, that the Republicans will at least get off of that because that is a bad thing. So I want to talk a little bit about House Bill 1296, which is the bill to unwind the Parental Bill of Rights, Initiative 2081. And I want to show you, I want to tell you guys, I am like 100% on my predictions for what's going to happen in Washington state. So I'm pretty proud of that. But here is one that I made on June 7th of last year. I'd have to put my glasses on. I don't know where they are, but the screenshot here in my tweet is from Senator Lisa Wellman, who is the chair of the Senate Education Committee, radical leftist. But she said in this was on her website, "We stand prepared to change the law." This is after they passed 2081. "We stand prepared to change the law should aspects of it not function as intended and put at risk any member of the LGBTQ plus community or threaten in any way a person's right to reproductive care," which they of course mean to kill your baby. And so with great fanfare on the Senate floor, lawmakers made crystal clear that the Parents' Bill of Rights does not change anything in existing law. And if it does, they will be ready to change it. And this, I actually posted this right before their lawsuit. When they did in June with the lawsuit, the judge kind of halted the implementation, and then that got overturned in February, I think it was. But I knew that they were going to push something through to repeal this. And of course they did. And so kind of one of the things that is also driving me a bit batty is the sort of this faux shock that this bill passed. It was a no-brainer. We knew that it was going to pass. And I know that I hope the Republicans knew that it was like, if they didn't think it was going to pass or that Ferguson wasn't going to sign it, again, like, are you not paying attention? Are you not sharp? I'm really frustrated. I'm kind of mad actually, because this was going to pass. It only applies to public schools, and parents need to get their kids out of public schools. And so instead of like putting out content to get like clicks and get people outraged about it, where is the effort to give parents help? Parents need to get their kids out of public school. You want to send a message to the Democrats? There should have been massive empty seats in Washington's public schools yesterday, the day after the bill was signed and took effect, because it took effect upon signing. there should have been a lot of empty desks in Washington's public schools, but parents don't, like, parents are scrambling. They're just trying to figure it out, but nobody on our side has really been helping them. I mean, we've tried. We've done a couple of live stream events. We're working on putting out a website that has a bunch of homeschool resources that we will have vetted, because not all homeschool resources are the same. And we want to find resources that align with our conservative ladies of America values and positions. And so we're working on putting that resource together. But we've really been trying to encourage and empower parents to pull their kids and homeschool their kids. It doesn't have to be, Monday through Friday, 9 to 2 or anything like that. There are a lot of things that parents can do, but where's the help for parents? Where are the Republicans telling parents, get your kids out of public school? And, here are, some resources for you. And, having, community gatherings, county GOPs having community gatherings, trying to figure this out to help parents. It's really frustrating to me. There's no help for parents. And, we're just a, citizen activist organization. We don't have any deep pocket donors. Although if you would like to be one, we would welcome you, as long as you don't try to tell us what to do with it. Thank you, Mike. That was awesome. Or I called you Mike. Sorry, John. And like John, you can throw some money in the tip jar there. That really helps us. But we don't have any deep pocket donors. It's truly people like John and people like you that just, whether it's $20 a month, $5 a month, whatever it is, that is, and that pays for like the streaming software that we use and the different platforms that we use. We're volunteers for the most part. And, we're doing more to try to get awareness out and help to parents than I feel like many of these other groups are. And it really disappoints me, because House Bill 1296 is a really bad bill. Most of all of that stuff was already law. But the nice thing about it, though, is that I don't mean nice. I don't know how to other word it, but the only good thing in that about that bill is that it only pertains to public schools. And so parents do have a choice. You don't have to send your kids to a public school. And I get it. I was a single mom of 4. I had 3 kids under 3. I have twins, and my son was like 2.5 when my twins were born. And so like I've got little kids close in age. My oldest is 7 years older than my son, but I was a single mom with all these little kids. And so I get it. Like I would have been like freaking out, but there is no way I would send my kids into the lion's den. You guys, that is our job as parents, to do the hard thing. And if you are a parent and you're like, I have got to get my kid out of the public school, and I work full time, and I'm a single mom, or whatever your situation is, and you need help, please, please, please contact us. info@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. Joy, would you put that in the chat as well? And you can put your email if you want. Joy loves to help parents homeschool their kids and figure things out. So please do contact us, because we will help you. We will try to find resources for you. You've got to protect your kids. Our children are the future of this country. And if you truly don't want to co-parent with the government, you've got to get your kids out of public schools in Washington state. So thank you, Ron. I appreciate that. God bless you as well. And thank you for your prayers. So there was my little rant on House Bill 1296. Let's move along. I promised we were going to talk about the recall process, because everybody asks. We see it in our comments on all of our platforms, whether it's on YouTube or X or Facebook. Thank you so much, Baron of Gray Matter. I appreciate that so much. It's time to recall Bob. Let's recall Bob. So if you've been in Washington for the last 5 years, you probably remember the Recall Inslee campaign. There were actually 2 or 3 different recall efforts. I didn't realize this, but someone tried to recall him in 2018. And the recall process there are 20 states that have a recall process, and only 2 recalls in the United States of America in US history, only 2 have ever actually been successful. And one of them was in California, like not that long, like within the last 25 years. And they got rid of a governor. I forget what governor it was, but Washington's recall process is very difficult. And so since there's a lot of talk about recalling the governor, I wanted to have this conversation with you guys, and I wanted to talk about it because it's important to know exactly what you're up against. Which spoiler alert, and I said this on X, if you want to climb Mount Rainier with flip-flops in a blizzard, this recall is for you. So you guys are just awesome. Christopher, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much, you guys. We appreciate it. So let's take a look. Can we recall Bob? Okay, so the first thing you have to do to recall any elected official in Washington state is you have to file a petition, and any voter can file a petition. And I don't know if you guys can read what's under it. If you want a copy of this this graphic, I will post it on social media, or you can screenshot it here. But any registered voter in Washington can file a petition to do a recall. You need to clearly state specific charges of misfeasance, malfeasance, or violation of the oath of office supported by verifiable facts. Now, you're probably reading that thinking, well, yeah, like most every bill that Bob Ferguson signed into law this session was a violation of his oath of office, because he swore that he would uphold the Constitution, and most of these bills are unconstitutional. And I totally agree with you. The unfortunate thing is step 2, the judicial review. So a Superior Court judge would then evaluate your petition and the charges and decide whether they are factually and legally sufficient to proceed. Now, you probably know that the recall petitions for Jay Inslee never went anywhere, and that's because they never got past step 2. The judicial system in Washington state has been captured by the radical left. And so most of the judges are in cahoots with Bob Ferguson and the Democrats. And maybe somebody in the chat will be able to remind me, but I think it was like last summer, several months ago, when there was, like, I don't know if this is the right term, but like a temporary injunction on the magazine ban. And so there was like 90 minutes where, you could run out to the gun store and buy high capacity magazines. And it lasted 90 minutes because Ferguson and his team were all ready to shut that down. So this is the kind of thing that you're dealing with in Washington state. And so that step 2 is your biggest hurdle. Most people can't get past step 2. Okay, so then, but let's say you do. Let's say somehow you find a judge in Washington that signs off on your recall petition. Then you have to go to gathering signatures, and you have, I want to say it's like 270 days to gather signatures, and you must collect signatures from registered voters equal to 25% of the total votes cast for all candidates for the governor's office in the last election. So let's say for Washington, I think it was around 4 million for the governor's race. So you'd need to get 1 million signatures. To put that into perspective, the petitions for Let's Go Washington, and Let's Go Washington, like, they're well funded, right? And so they had paid signature gatherers and all of that. And they got on, like, each of their petitions. I don't think any of their petitions was over like 500,000, but they had a lower threshold. I think they only needed like 400 or something like that. You're going to need 1 million So there's your next hurdle. This has to be a really organized effort. And one of the things that I have noticed in Washington in my time being an activist is that there's not much organization or collaboration between groups and people. Everybody kind of wants to like march to the beat of their own drum, even within the Washington GOP. You have different counties really doing different things, it seems like, but I've never really been that dialed into the GOP. Okay. So you get your signatures, and then what's next? You have your recall election, and the voters will vote to recall or not. So there would be, I think, the Secretary of State's office would get to decide the language that would go on the ballot, which if you pay any attention to the initiatives and the language that they used on the ballots for the initiatives, they're very deceptive on those as well. So I think there's a lot of places, like even if you got past, if you got past step 2, okay, well then you have hurdle to get over to gather the signatures, and then you have the election. Now, let's just say you get through all of these steps and the recall election is successful. You get the lieutenant governor, which is Denny Heck. And I don't know, I mean, he seems like he's maybe a little bit moderate, but I don't think that's possible in Washington. He seems like a pushover from just he presides over the Senate. So that's kind of what I'm basing my thoughts off of. And he would totally get pushed around by the Senate Democrats. So all of that to say, the process to recall a governor in Washington state is like climbing Mount Rainier in flip-flops in a blizzard. It's next to impossible. So what do you do? I'm going to give you what do you do, but I saw somebody say something back here that I was like, yep, I need to touch back on that. And it was something about collapse, and I don't know where it went. It was Dave. Yep. Dave Marcus said the state will collapse. Okay. So I fully believe the state will collapse. I don't think it's a matter of I think it's a matter of when. I think with all of these taxes and things that have just gotten passed, I think that's going to make things really difficult for citizens. And they're funding the pet projects, and you're going to see people leave. You're going to see taxpayers like myself, and maybe like some of you that are watching, who don't want to fund this stuff, and you want your money to, you don't want to lose your money to the state that is a fiscal disaster and a number of disaster in other ways. So I do think that it's going to collapse, and of course it will have to be rebuilt. So those, I think you've got sort of like your remnant that you've got the people who are like, nope, I'm sticking around. I'm not giving up my property. I'm going to be here. I'm going to, sit it out through the collapse, and I'm going to be here for the rebuild. I'm going to be here to take back Washington. And those people are, needed. But that's not really what everybody can do. And it's going to be painful in the process. So that's why I say, if you can get out, you should get out. So I want to look at any of the comments here that you guys have. Ariana, I'm ready to move. We are in the process of getting out. Lord willing, I will be praying for you to get out. That would be great. I know a number of people who are trying to get out. I have a friend who just listed her house today. They are moving to Arizona. We had our citizen weekly meeting this afternoon, and one of the gentlemen that is on the meeting frequently had just, so they sold their house in West Seattle and they moved to Arizona, and was feeling, just the relief of getting out of Washington state. Now, one of the other things, if you are staying, there are going to be a lot of local elections this year at your city, county level, where you might be electing a city council, county council, a new mayor, school board. These, and I know Trust me, I know that Washington elections are safe or secure. I know that's not true. I know it's a big hot mess, and I voted for the very first time. I think I must have been about 30, 29 maybe, in 2004 when it was Dino Rossi and Christine Gregoire. That was the first time I voted, and I only voted because my boss, I was working at Associated Builders and Contractors of Western Washington in Bellevue, and my boss, they were very politically active. We had a PAC and a government affairs coordinator and all that. And my boss said, you have to vote. And Dino had been in and out of our office. And so I voted for Dino. I wasn't really engaged at all in politics. And then, you had the 3 recounts, and finally she won, Christine Gregoire, when they found some ballots in a trunk, and she won. And it was only like, I was just looking this up the other day. It was a really small number of ballots, like right around 100. And, I was like, okay, well, if they're just going to count the ballots until they get the number they want, I'm out. I'm not doing this. And so I did not vote again until 2016. And I only voted for Donald Trump. And that was sort of my ramping up to sort of waking up to, oh, we have to be engaged in our government if we don't want it to go to poop. So all that to say, the local elections are critically important, and there are some good candidates in Washington state that are running at a local level. I would encourage you to look them up. Like, you can go on the Secretary of State's website. If you don't know, you can email us, info@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. We'd be happy to help dig into that for you. But you can also try reaching out to your county GOP and see if they have a list of candidates maybe. And if you find a candidate that really resonates with you, that you think that you could really support, that maybe you could volunteer some time, or you could, do some posting on social media or something like that. These local races are a little bit easier to control because they're small. The voter numbers are smaller. And so you can kind of have more control. And the left is very good at getting in at that local level. And that is how they have been so successful in pushing their agenda into, so many parts of this country, even, here in my red county in Sarasota. I live in Sarasota, Florida. And, if you ever go to, I've gone to the county council meetings and things like that, and the left is there. Like, they're always there in big numbers, and they're organized, and they've got, matching shirts and whatever. It's crazy. They're so organized. So get involved. Especially even if you're not staying in Washington, please get involved. And we are really trying to spread throughout the country and just get citizens active in their local government, state government. It's harder to be active at a federal level, but there's a lot that you can do at the local level. A couple other things I want to show you guys before we sign off today. I'm kind of looking to see if there's any questions in the chat. I see Joy's chatting with you guys. So hopefully, Joy, you'll ping me if there's something that needs my attention. Okay. So I was digging as I was looking through the Washington bills that passed and what Ferguson had signed. I found he had vetoed some of the line items in the budget. So I just started kind of pilfering through that to see what was in that. And these were kind of interesting. So I pulled out just a couple of things that were interesting, and you can go to governor.wa.gov, I think is the website. And then halfway down the page is a bill actions button. If you click on that, you can go and see that's where I'm finding all of this stuff. Okay. So in the middle of this, section 129, 35, page 43, Department of Commerce, refugee skating lessons. Refugee skating lessons. This section provides funding to the Department of Commerce solely for an organization that provides skating lessons for preschoolers from low-income families. Growing youth enrichment opportunities is beneficial, but I am vetoing this item because of the state's significant fiscal challenges and funding cuts from the federal government. There we go, Trump again. I just thought that was crazy. Refugee skating lessons. English lessons, civics, teach them about the Constitution, the Pledge of Allegiance. Nope, skating lessons. Where do they skate? Like all of the skating rinks for the most part, like in Seattle. I can't think of where there's a skating rink in Seattle. I know the Everett Skate Deck that closed a few years ago, but I thought that was crazy. I wonder how it makes me wonder. Usually, a lot of these things carry over from budget to budget. So I'm kind of curious now, how long have Washington taxpayers been paying for skating lessons for illegal immigrant kids? Sorry for your own American children. We can't help them with skating lessons. All right. This was one that I was really happy about, and I kind of surprised. So this ties into Senate Bill 5599, which passed in 2023. We were very active on that particular bill. We did a rally at a protest. It was a protest. It was not a rally at the Capitol. In April of 2023. It was right before I moved. So this is for a teen center counseling services in Issaquah. This section provides funding to the Department of Commerce, solely responsible for a nonprofit that operates a teen case management and housing connections support program. I am vetoing this because of the state's fiscal challenges and funding cuts from the federal government. Okay, sorry. Joy was texting me with a question, and I'm going to go back to that. Okay, so it's only $300,000, which is a lot, though, if you think about $300,000 for a nonprofit in Issaquah to give housing supports to youth age 12 to 19. Now, Senate Bill 5599 allows kids to go to a host home or a youth shelter without notifying the parents. Basically, they can hide your kid from you so that they can get an abortion or so-called gender affirming care. So I was surprised to see this. It could be hidden somewhere else too. I'm not really sure. There's a ton of funding. I actually, as I was looking at this, I pulled up a whole other document about some Senate Bill 5599 related stuff that I'll dig into that later and come back to that. Okay, someone has a question about okay, I see it. Janice. Okay, let's put this up. I've wanted to move to Sarasota for several years now, and am now in a position to be able to. However, I'm a renter. Can you recommend an agent company I can contact to assist in my search for an apartment? Yes. Go to pinkpineappleproperties.com. I think that's it. Courtney is the gal's name. And if you go to the website, there should be a contact form. Courtney actually, so that's what Courtney does, all property management. Well, I shouldn't say all. She helped us buy our house, and we bought our house. We made the offer sight unseen. And she's actually helping us now. We're looking for a house for my parents. And she's great. But she primarily does property management. So that's Pink Pineapple Properties. And I may have the website wrong, but if you Google it, it should come up. So if you have any other questions though, Janice, you can email me, julie@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. And I'm happy to connect you with her email and phone number and all that. Any other questions? I think I covered everything I meant to cover. But if you guys have any more questions, I commented that until the voters here in this state change, we will be out-taxed and continue to have bought elected officials run the state. I totally agree. And I think also, Deborah, that there's not a strategy on the Republican side. One thing that really frustrated me with the last election, just being involved in legislation like we have been, I've realized the importance of the legislators, and really, in order to make change, you need to shift the makeup of the state legislature. You need Republicans to pick up more seats, and the legislative seats would be easier to get than a statewide seat like a governor. And yet you had so much focus on the governor's race with Reichert and Byrd. And, that was a huge drama thing. And so there was really not a lot of focus on these legislative seats. And we tried our best to focus people on that and try to engage people in getting behind candidates and helping candidates get elected. And unfortunately, we lost, no, with Washington, we lost a few seats in the legislature. And, that has given them an even stronger, an even greater stronghold. And there are a few seats that were vacated because, Ferguson appointed some of them to positions in the state government. A couple, one passed away this year. And so there's going to be a special election for a few legislative seats. And I think it's possible. I mean, they're kind of in really safe areas. And I don't think that Ferguson would have pulled people from those seats if he didn't think that they could win the special election. So but that is something to look at and get involved in. But that's really my personal thought, is if there could be a better effort on the part of the Republican Party on having a focus on legislative seats. And I like Jim. Jim's a really good guy. He's a great legislator. I imagine it's really difficult for him to multitask and be able to campaign and run the GOP at the same time. So hopefully we'll see some people in the party step up. But even, we've kind of I'm working with a group in the city of Snohomish to try to get a slate of candidates elected up there. And there's just not a lot of help from the county party. And that's frustrating, because if you don't have that, then what do you do? So that is that. We could talk forever, but it's almost 6:00 here and I want to go outside. So, thank you so much for joining me. I'll put out some written content probably tomorrow on the recall effort, so that you guys can actually see that if you didn't screenshot it. But it's pretty much impossible. And so I would encourage folks who are thinking about how great it would be to recall Bob Ferguson, don't expend your effort and your energy on that, because it's really going to be kind of an impossible task. So find a local candidate that you can support. If your children are in public school, get them out. If you need help, please do email us, info@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. We are happy to brainstorm with you and connect you with resources as best we can. If you haven't done it already, go watch the replay of our live stream. It's called Empowered to Educate. We brought in a bunch of the great homeschool activists and advocates from across the country, and they're amazing. And there's some really good nuggets of information in there. And keep your eyes peeled for more information. If you are a homeschool resource, or of some that we should be looking at, send those to us as well. Again, info@conservativeladiesofamerica.com. Hey, you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. Have a great weekend, and I'll chat with you again soon.